want to thank everybody for coming out today. We've kind of got a joint press conference for you. We're joined by the Pennsylvania State Fire Commissioner Tim Soloway. We're joined also by a representative from the Consumer Product Safety Commission, Mr. Toth, and obviously we have our chief from Manchester Township and myself to discuss the recent fires that we've seen involving hoverboards and the dangers that they pose to the public. Through investigation and talking with the family after the fire in Manchester the other day, we were able to determine that with pretty good certainty, the hoverboard that was involved in the fire in Manchester and the hoverboard that was involved in the fire in 2534 Lexington Street came from the same batch of hoverboards that were imported into the United States under the brand name Lazy Board. The Consumer Product Safety Commission had asked for a voluntary, to stop using these boards after the fatal fire where we lost 2 precious children and one of our own lieutenants on Lexington Street back on March the 10th. And we know that there's still boards out there. There was approximately 3,000 of these boards imported into the United States, and we believe around 300 of them were sold locally here. And it's obvious the connection to Manchester just right down the road. These boards were sold locally here online through two websites, 2 web apps, one OfferUp and the other Let Go. And just out of curiosity this morning, as we're preparing for the press conference, we looked at OfferUp and Let Go to see how many hoverboards are out there. 32 were locally available on OfferUp and 4 were available on Let Go. And I think the frustrating thing for us, there's actually a Lazy Board brand hoverboard, as you see pictured here, that was involved in the fire both in Lexington Street and what we believe to have been involved in a fire in Manchester earlier this week. There was one of those available for sale online out in New Jersey. We know that the boards are not UL listed under the new listing of UL 2272, and we are asking and pleading with the public, please, through word of mouth, through your families, through your Facebook pages, through all your connections, help us help you get the word out that these lazy boards need to be discontinued from use. We're also asking if you have a lazy board, hoverboard, that you bring it to one of the 3 fire stations in the city of Harrisburg or to the Manchester, and we will take those in and we will dispose of those properly. Unfortunately, we have nothing at this point to offer other than the safety of your family once you've removed it from your home. We would also ask any of our partners out there in the community that would be willing to donate some foot-powered Razor scooters or something along that line. If you'd like to partner with us in this bring back of these dangerous boards, please contact us. We would love to be able to give these kids something to replace this dangerous toy in their home, and nothing better than a Razor scooter that would be foot-powered that we could give them in return. We're going to take names and phone numbers down to those folks that bring the Razor board hoverboards back to us. That way, in the event we do get a partner that would like to partner with us, we can then marry them up with a new toy. And it would be a great opportunity to help us save property, help us save lives of our public. We'll turn it over to Randy from the Consumer Product Safety Commission on a few words that he has from the federal level.
Good afternoon. In 2015, the Commission started investigating the fires involved with the hoverboards. There was a little over 60 at this point we've investigated. Last year, 2016, we put a recall out. There was over 500,000 boards from 11 different companies that are involved in that. And if you would like to find out if your hoverboard is part of that recall, you can go to our website, which is www.cpsc.gov, and just search on there for the recall, and it'll come up. And there's a list of all the model numbers, manufacturers on there that are involved in a recall. If you are considering purchasing a hoverboard, you need to look for a UL marking. It's 2272. It'll say meets or conforms to UL 2272. If you're going to, when you charge the thing, charge it in an open area away from any combustible materials. Use the cord that comes with the board. Don't use something else. And have working fire extinguishers on hand when you're doing that.
Next, we'll have Chief Joe Stevens from the Manchester Fire Department in York County, and he can explain a little bit about the fire that they had. Once he's done with that, we're going to talk about the similarities, and as you see, we got some visual aids here on the two buildings that were on fire. To my left, your right, is the Lexington Street fire that claimed 2 civilians and 1 firefighter. And on my right here, your left, are pictures, and you can see the similarities in the fire volume and what was left standing or not standing of the Manchester fire. And we'll discuss that a little bit when Chief Stevens is done.
Thank you. Good afternoon. As Chief had indicated, early Monday morning, October the 23rd, Union Fire Company and various York County fire and emergency units were dispatched to 210 Royal Drive for a report of smoke in the basement with a hoverboard that was involved. We knew that information right from the start. Our lieutenant en route to the scene had seen a thermal column and asked for additional resources en route. And pretty much on arrival, what you see to my right is what we found. A townhouse in the middle of a 6-unit row. It was completely off. We had heavy fire visible from all levels and through the roof. Our indications at that point were that everyone had evacuated the entire row. Everybody was accounted for. We were in defensive mode, operating from the outside. We put firefighters into the 2nd floor on both exposures on each side of that fire building. And they started pulling ceilings and walls open. They had heavy fire traveling through those ceilings and walls, and they started knocking that fire back. We were dispatched at 2:58, our on-scene time shortly after 3 a.m., and by 3:19 we had a general collapse of the main fire structure. Had that fire volume been any less, we probably would have had firefighters enter that building and attempt to extinguish that fire. But with the heavy volume of fire, we didn't, and thankfully so, as we would have sustained heavy injuries or loss of life. At present, all indications point back to the hoverboard as the source of that fire. The residents, obviously, in the main fire building, 6 children, 2 adults, permanently displaced. We expect the residents on both sides of that structure to lose their houses as well, and we have a total of 13 displaced, 21, I believe, affected in this fire altogether. So early estimates are looking somewhere around 500,000. We fully guess that will rise from there.
And obviously, both fires, both here in the city of Harrisburg and the one in Manchester, as we look at the photos, the volume of fire is essentially the same. The buildings, as you look at them, appear to be the same, but from firefighting, we know that they're not. And as the chief alluded to, thankfully there was a slight delay in them receiving the alarm, because we probably would have seen firefighter fatalities at this particular fire due to the nature of the building construction and how quickly it collapsed. For years, the fire service has been, trying and fighting for and advocating for residential fire sprinklers. And without a doubt, the fire in Manchester would have been contained with 1 sprinkler head in the basement. It probably would have not made the news and would have been cleaned up with simply a shop vac and probably replacing some carpet and maybe the bed and things that would have gotten wet. Unfortunately, that family of 8 is now without a home, and 2 more families, 2 more buildings will also probably be demolished because of that. And had a simple sprinkler system been installed in that building when it was built in approximately 2002, at a cost of maybe $8,000 or $10,000 at the time, that significant loss that you see would have been avoided. One of the issues that we're dealing with throughout the Commonwealth and throughout the country, for that matter, is lightweight construction. And these things are being built out of small lumber. They're being held together with what's called a gusset plate that fails very quickly under heat and fire conditions. And when you look, and so from a fire standpoint, we've been comparing and contrasting several fires, and we plan to put a paper out on this. 2 fatal fires here in the city and the one in Manchester. The similarities in the fire loading and the similarities in how the fire started, where the fire started, are there. What we see after the fire on Lexington Street, our firefighters were in there for 45 minutes to an hour putting that fire out. We had no fear of collapse of that building, and quite frankly, that building would be stable to go into it again if we would have needed to. Unfortunately, the lightweight construction that we see that was in Manchester, that building could have claimed the lives of firefighters had they been there 5 or 7 minutes earlier, had that receipt of the alarm not been delayed. And so the place where we can make this change, and it's a statewide building code, we need the folks in this building, and we need you as our media partners to really put an emphasis on how this one little sprinkler head will save lives and property across the Commonwealth. We're continuously fighting an uphill battle, and the builders will tell us, well, the building can be rebuilt. What about the lives that have been lost, and what about the potential of lives that we could have lost the other day? We'll have Commissioner Salabay talk a little bit about Pennsylvania's push at the state level through the Fire Commissioner's Office and Fire Prevention on our plight to try and get fire sprinklers in all new residential buildings.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chief, both chiefs actually, and the handsome group of gentlemen behind me for what it is you do in your communities each and every day to keep us all protected, to make sure that our families are safe, and that when bad things occur, you folks are there to take care of things. And Randy, for your organization, whenever things like this are identified, is always the group that jumps forward to make sure that the public is made aware that there is a danger or concern, and making sure we're all educated to make, in a case of a recall, whatever the case may be. So we thank your agency also as well. As Brian has alluded to, and you've heard the old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And looking at the 2 pictures is a great depiction of how the difference is between construction of buildings, mainly of residential homes. The building to my left, your right, was constructed probably 75 or 80 years ago, what we call stick-built, which is where they pounded together all the beams and the wood joists and everything with nails, and which makes it much more safer. The construction to my right, your left, as Brian alluded to, was put together with little plates that have little tiny pegs that kind of stick and keep those things together. Within a small impingement of fire on those things, they weaken, and as you can see, the building collapses out. One of the main reasons, one of the main pushes that we are trying to make folks understand and realize the importance of residential sprinklers in their home. It's either a $30,000 room of contents or a complete $300,000 complete rebuild. And yeah, you can rebuild, and in most cases, because of smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, and awareness to get you out of a building, in most cases, folks do get out in time, but we know it isn't always the case. But yet, within the utilization of the sprinkler system, we know that as you look at, and there's studies that have been done across the country. I'll point to one down in the state of Maryland, where over 80,000 structural fires have occurred. Any of those structure fires where there was a sprinkler system in place did not have one single residential death. And that says a whole lot as well. So, what has occurred here recently, and I know the news conference today, is the importance of notifying you about these hoverboards, but also it gives us an opportunity to show you what the difference makes from construction types, and then the difference of how you can make the newer lightweight construction types much more safer just by the utilization and installation of a sprinkler system. So again, thank you, Brian, for pulling everybody together and the opportunity to make the case of the importance of residential sprinklers.
All right, thanks, Commissioner. Just in summary, we are pleading with our media partners, with those in the community, please use all available media outlets, all your Twitter feeds, all your Facebook accounts, word of mouth, to get this word of these lazy boards out to the public, out to those that have these, so we can get these off the streets. You can, you can bring those to one of the 3 fire stations here in the city of Harrisburg. We'll probably also accept them down in Manchester, and we will make sure that they are properly recycled. We're also asking that we could maybe find a partner that would want to provide some kind of additional, fun toy, some kind of riding toy that would be foot powered for those that turn these in. And so we're asking, one of those toy companies or something like that that might want to partner with us to make, some kids happy. Look, they are losing a toy that they probably got for Christmas or a birthday, and mom and dad inadvertently did not understand that they were so dangerous. I guess at this time we'll take any questions that you have for the 4 of us regarding either fire sprinklers or the hoverboards and the fires themselves.
Question is to anyone of you who wants to take it. What are the current standards for residential fire sprinklers, and maybe why isn't there something that's maybe a uniform standard, and what kind of outreach has been done with any of the lawmakers here in the Commonwealth?
Back in 2011, Act 1 was one of the first pieces of legislation that then Governor Corbett had signed that removed out of the Uniform Construction Code that had been passed in Pennsylvania in 2010 the need for residential sprinklers whenever on a new build construction. Again, as Brian alluded to earlier, it was lobbied against by the Pennsylvania builders to kind of take that away. They felt it put them into a uncompetitive opportunity here in the Commonwealth to be able to build homes, and so that took it out of the building code. And so now, there's nothing stopping anyone from having them installed in your home when you're having a house built. Builders under that agreement were to make information available to consumers whenever they were building a house for them of what it would take or cost to put a system in. The frustration that we have is you hear the stories about all these sprinkler heads opening up if there's a higher and extra water damage, which isn't true because the way they're set up, only the one where the fire is located is going to be going off. Hollywood sometimes makes it a little tough for us to sell that question. And then the other thing is that, they leak or they have a problem. Well, we all have sinks, bathtubs, showers, commodes in our homes, and they don't leak. It's a matter of installation, proper insulation, and making sure that they're cared for and maintenance with them, just as you do anything else in your home.
What is it about the hoverboards that makes them so dangerous as opposed to a cigarette or cooking? Is there something specific about this?
We'll let Randy get some good information on that.
It's a battery issue. It's a battery issue. It's how they're constructed. Some we've found where the batteries are daisy chained together. The housing is screwed down on top of the plastic housing, where it may crimp some of the wires, causing an issue, causing failure. There are some counterfeit batteries that are used. The new standard, the UL 2272, that standard tests the battery with the board. The current standard prior to this was only to test the battery. So only the batteries were being tested. Some of these batteries aren't for hoverboards. And so they're being put in there, they're just taking any bad. The demand outweighed the supply when they first came out. So they were just putting them together and sending them off.
What does UL stand for?
Underwriters Laboratory.
And, do any of y'all have an idea of where these hoverboards were sold? And if so, is there a specific batch number?
No, yes, I know where they're sold. Batch number, no. When these boards came in the country, they didn't have any labeling on them. They didn't have a manufacturer. They didn't have a, a UL spec. They didn't have a model number, batch code, none of that. So it's very difficult to identify them.
So were they being sold online or in store?
Everywhere. You could get them in stores. You could get them at the kiosks at the mall. You could get them online. Yeah, any avenue available, you could buy them. China for the lazy board. China. Shenzhen, China.
Yeah, Shenzhen. I think it's with Shenzhen, China. Shenzhen.
Shenzhen, China. Yes.
Was the lazy board on the recall list of hoverboards?
Yeah.
What would it take for it to be on the recall list?
A viable company that's still in business. The business that brought these in is no longer in business. So there's no one there to replace the board, fix the board, or give you your money back. The business is no longer functioning. So that's why we put out a safety bulletin asking people to, destroy them, take them to a recycling plant, just get rid of them.
Is it because of this that they're no longer in business?
No and yes. When they first came in, they brought them in, wanted to make some money. They only brought 3,000 in. That's small compared to a regular importation. And what happened is they didn't sell. The fires started occurring and people started to get weary and not buying the hoverboards. And they were very pricey. Some of these are $800,000 for these boards. And you don't want to spend $1,000, $800 to have it burn your house up. So people were not buying them. They were bringing them back. They were getting their money back from when they did purchase them. So it's multiple factors.
Has this brand of board been linked to any other fires across the country, or are there other boards that have also...
Not that I'm aware of. It's very difficult unless it's witnessed, the fire's witnessed. And in both these incidents, fires were witnessed. They were also able to identify the board, send pictures. Everybody has a cell phone, so they videotape their kid on the board, or their child's taking pictures for themselves, of themselves on the board. So we were able to have that available.
So if I heard that these were not recalled?
No, they were not recalled. There's no company to take responsibility for the board, so they could not recall them. We just asked people to get them out of their house.
Are there others though that are recalled?
Yes, there's over 500,000 that have been recalled by 11 different companies, and you can find that on our website. You just go on our website and search hoverboards, and it'll show up, throw up the recall, and you can read it. It tells you what manufacturers. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure exactly what it looks like, but usually it tells you manufacturer. It'll give you a style number, model number, color, something like that.
So should anyone with hoverboards bring them? Is it that big of an issue, or is it only these that you really like that?
Well, yeah, so as far as turning them back in, the lazy boards, spelled the way you see it on the photo today, are the ones that we want to see come off the street immediately. They're the ones that we're saying bring to our fire stations and we'll dispose of them for you. When you look at the Consumer Product Safety Commission's recalls, those are the ones that should be going back to the manufacturer. There's certain instructions on their website on how to get your money back, how to exchange it, how to get it repaired. And those that are under those particular recalls, you need to follow what that recall procedure is for each individual hoverboard. So you'd have to look and see what your hoverboard is, look on Consumer Product Safety Commission website and see if it's part of that recall. And again, as Randy alluded to, there's over 500,000 boards that are part of a recall from 11 different companies. So it's a wide-ranging recall that's already out there. Anything else? All right. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.